Live.
We're live. Aren't we
We're
alive?
live. Is everybody here?
Well, we'll see. So, no intros or anything this morning. It's been a wild morning, I think, for both Andrea and I. So, we're just coming in hot off of a giggle fest and taking a deep breath. Ooh, what a start to the day, huh?
Yeah, what a start. I mean, what a weird world. What a weird world. All right. So yeah, Kelly's daughter ran out of gas this morning. The accountant was trying to tell me and Rowan that we owed like 40 grand in taxes. And we're like, negative.
Yeah, none of this was scripted this morning, but we go with the flow, and you ended up probably in a battle with your accountant, and I just like, okay, well, let's take care of what we need to take care of. So
life happens.
It does happen.
So as everybody can see, Kelly is showing off her 2 Women in Crypto shirt, as am I.
Woohoo! Yep.
So you can purchase these beautiful babies and support the channel on our website at twowomeninCrypto.com. Check us out.
Do please. Fun.
Yeah.
And more things. We have all kinds of thoughts in store for lots of exciting stuff to come forward. But anyway, I'm trying to get myself grounded. So wow, there was a lot happening this week. So many things we could tap into. What do you have on the agenda today?
Yeah, so we're going to talk a lot about the Bitcoin conference because that's going on live now for the past couple of days. And thank goodness for the Bitcoin conference, because the news that's coming out and the inspiration and the hope is so different than like what's going on in the world right now with like some of the central banks. I know Kelly and I have kind of been going back and forth talking about Europe and their plan to roll out their digital ID. So we'll get into that a little bit today. And and just kind of go over some of the news, and just most of it's just kind of fun and funny, you know? So like I was reading through the white pages, like, so if everybody goes to Ripple's website, you can actually pull their white page and read about, their plan for the central bank digital currency and like the pros and cons, right? So there's pros and cons to everything. But, Ripple, who's been working with all the different government institutions, and when they're talking about the central bank's digital currency, they're just like, it's really difficult for a central bank to relinquish its control.
Sure.
So, and then you're looking at like 80% of all countries are looking into rolling out a central bank digital currency, which means that we no longer have to go to like a regular bank. We're getting money directly from the source, right? So that they would be like 100% in control, giving people like a central bank digital currency, probably like on a digital ID, right? And they would control all of our data. And, I think, Kelly, we should totally trust these people.
Oh, sure.
I mean, they have our best interests in heart.
Oh yeah, let's just get in line right now, and I'll be the first one to sign up for. Oh, I don't even.
I think it's going to be called a Fed app. So like you'll be able to download an app on your phone, and then they're going to give us money, right? Because they're basically wiping out the middle class right now. I mean, we see it like the prices, like I'm like looking at like a couple of things at the grocery store and monitoring how much it goes up in price. Like, and as we see, like it used to be like once a month. Now it's almost like once a week that the prices bump up a little bit. And so as the speed of inflation goes higher, that's actually called hyperinflation. That's what hyperinflation is. It's just the speed of inflation. So we definitely, want to keep an eye on this and be mindful of it. But so we know that China went live with their CBDC.
Yeah.
the Bahamas went live with the sand dollar. So we have two countries that are live on their central bank digital currency. And
I
now,
didn't know. I didn't know about the Bahamas.
yeah, yeah. So it's called the sand dollar.
But yeah.
But the USA, we're pretty far along. And again, like Ripple will actually show a map of the world, and color coordinated shows you what countries are like in the research phase, the beginning phase, or the more advanced phases of like, actually like getting ready to pilot the central bank digital currency. So we have like the Ukraine, South Africa, Australia. They all have their prototypes. So it's just a
Yeah.
matter of time and regulation, and when all the different governments are ready to start to roll this out. Now, they can have all the plans in the world to roll out a central bank digital currency. And this was really interesting because I was doing research and I heard in El Salvador, they rolled out a central bank digital currency.
How long ago?
Well, it failed.
Oh,
And
okay.
what did they do? They legalized Bitcoin as legal tender.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So like after like doing deep dives like all week, I'm becoming more and more of a fan of Bitcoin. I mean, I've always been a fan, but like what Bitcoin is doing in other countries. And I know, again, it's hard. The United States, we have the reserve currency. So we're like in this privileged, I mean, everyone should be in this privileged, like our money is our own, we're sovereign beings, but only 13% of all people live the lifestyle that like an average American person lives.
Yeah, I was actually having this conversation with my sister yesterday about just this huge disparity, right? It's like, and it's just getting broader and broader and broader.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we kind of touched base on this last week. Like the way I'm looking at like the economy and where it's going is like we're going to have a wealth crisis.
Yeah.
So as prices of like utilities and gas and food, it's going to keep going up, and our leaders are telling us, like Janet Yellen is telling us like, inflation is going to get worse. Like she's been talking all week. She's the United States Treasury. So she's been having like a lot of different conversations. But again, she's saying that inflation's going to get worse because of the Ukraine. So it has nothing to do with the fact that we printed trillions and trillions of
Right.
dollars when the government told us to stay home in 2020.
Yeah.
And if you even look even further back, really during the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009, is we kind of never turned off the printing press.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So we've had what? Now we're talking over a decade of constantly printing money, but here we are, we're at war with Russia, and then so we can blame Russia for the inflation. But
Yeah.
and again, it's like, is it Russia's fault or is it the government's fault and central bank digital currency?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, and we talk about this a lot offline, it's just this orchestrated plan, and the fingers are pointing wherever it makes sense in the media to point the fingers for the overarching issues at hand and what's really being played out on the theater stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we really want to keep an eye on moving forward. What are the central banks doing? What's their plan? What's their plan with a digital ID?
Right.
Because, these are very new things for everyone, right? All over the globe. And when we look at El Salvador and the fact that they didn't accept the central bank digital currency, now they have a more sovereign, means of tender. And people who have been living in other countries, like in America, people look at Bitcoin like a store of value. and they hold it because it's been the best performing asset since inception, right?
Well,
So we
absolutely.
hold our Bitcoin, we don't sell our Bitcoin, we hold it. But in other countries like Africa and, like Argentina, you look at Turkey just hit 61% inflation on their lira. People use Bitcoin as a lifeline.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, even other cryptocurrencies has been a lifeline for a lot of people recently. I mean, those that are looking at being able to go to the grocery store are actually having to tap into their funds, their cryptocurrencies.
Definitely, definitely, and I know like during the Bitcoin conference, like, people who use the Cash app, they just partnered with NCR, which is one of the major payment protocols that,
Mm,
everyone uses in the United States. So they're adopting Bitcoin as payment, and they will, same thing, if you have your Cash app on your phone, you can use Bitcoin to pay, and it's immediately converted over to cash. And we're
right.
talking Walmart, fast food restaurants, Home Depot, thousands and thousands of companies are going to start accepting this as payment, like out in the world, like not just e-commerce, because 20% of all payments are on the internet. 80% we're still doing in person. So we have to keep this in mind, right? We can't buy everything at overstock.com or through shopping.io. So
And there's always the fees. And hello, Kim, good to see you. There's always the fees. There's fees involved in all these transactions. So even though, I mean, those of us that are holding cryptocurrencies and do need to tap into those funds, we just need to always recognize that on either side of the coin, there's going to be an additional fee, but that's okay. We have to utilize what we have to make our way through the world. Don't
no,
be afraid. Don't be afraid to take on the fees. If you have to take on the fees, and that goes even to get into the markets, right? The fees serve their purpose on both sides.
yeah, definitely. And and I'm sure we all noticed, like, crypto is down again today, but we had Jerome Powell come out and say like inflation is getting, it's getting out of control. So what they need to do is raise interest rates. So now if you want to go and buy a house today, you're looking at least a 5% interest rate when you purchase a house. So what is that going to do to prices of housing? We're going to see the price of housing start to go down because people are purchasing houses at a higher interest rate. So something to keep in mind.
The
Um,
whole housing market as a whole, and I know that this is not what this is all about, but it is all
but
tied
it is all
together.
tied together,
It's all
right?
tied together. I mean, the housing markets it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. You can buy, or you can look to spend 500,000 for really a tear down. It's a tear down. People, I mean, how is it working out there? I don't understand. I mean, how can those first time home buyers even begin to think about buying a home in today's market?
Right. And then they start doing, like really creative mortgage loans. And then, again, is it going to be a similar situation in 2008 when we had the Great Recession and people just walked away from their homes?
Right.
Like I can see that happening because people have been paying over asking price for houses all across the United States for quite some time now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a very precarious line we're walking, but we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, yeah, yep. So another interesting thing like I found on Ripple's website was like they said by 2024 half of the United States population is going to have a digital wallet.
It makes perfect sense. How could they not?
Yep, yep. And they talked about like how open banking is being adopted on such a quick basis, but yet over 50% of the population has never even heard of open banking.
Yeah.
So I think we're coming to like I kind of feel like everything is really, really fast. Like everything is like speeding up like so quickly that like, we just have to take a deep breath, ground, and just look at the bigger picture. It's going to be a bumpy ride to the top, but as we're seeing the dollar continuously lose its value, right? So it's not like butter is all of a sudden worth more, right? It's just we need more dollars to buy that same butter because our money is getting devalued every month over month. Where if
Yeah.
you have 50 grand in a savings account month over month, you're losing money every month. That 50 grand is losing its purchasing power. So just something to like keep in mind, because as I see it, like as the blockchain gets more and more built and more adopted, then people are going to flow the money more and more into blockchain technology and less
Sure.
and less into dollars. So it's the same thing with central bank digital currency. Like, and what Ripple said, like, you can offer the people, a central bank digital currency, but if the private sectors and other monies like Bitcoin, you have to compete with them. So are we going to trust the central bank who's probably going to charge us a 2%, negative interest rate on the money that they're going to give us? Like, do we want that kind of monetary policy, or do we want a sovereign a sovereign money, something like Bitcoin that is only growing in value year over year,
Right.
you
Yeah,
know?
it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. Well, we know what camp we're in, and Kim has a question. She wanted to know if you could explain what open banking is. Can you
Yeah,
expand on that?
definitely. So we kind of touched base on this before, Kim. So basically, what open banking is going to be is Coinbase is going to be an open bank. Okay, we're going to be able to get our paychecks direct deposited into Coinbase. We're going to have our own debit card that's attached to our Coinbase account, and within that account, we can buy, sell, trade cryptocurrencies. So it's just like a new version of the banking system, because again, like, we're not going to need as many Bank of America and Wells Fargo with companies like Coinbase, crypto.com, Voyager, and I think Celsius is coming out with a credit card. So all of these newer, like, they call them like fintech companies, so they're financial companies, but they're all based on technology, and that's basically incorporated into like this new open banking system.
Yeah, so for example, right now I have a Coinbase account and I'm utilizing, I upload my debit card with fiat with cash and then I use it in the world and then I earn 4% back in XLM coins. So it's a way to incentivize us to stay within the system, that system,
Yeah.
which is, and then I can switch it around to have the debit card actually work within and against my cryptocurrency holdings. So yeah, it's pretty interesting how
Yeah.
it is working out.
Yeah, and I know with Voyager, like, there's a bunch of us that are on the waiting list still to get the debit card. And again, the SEC has been going after Voyager Digital, um, just because like they pay 9% interest per month on the USDC, which is the United States digital coin. So it's the same thing as a dollar, but just a digital version. So Voyager pays out 9% per year, but they pay you out monthly. And once we can get our paychecks, deposited into Voyager, and we're going to have our debit card, why are we going to need a Bank of America or like a Wells Fargo, or a traditional bank? So the SEC is coming after these companies because it's a power struggle, and it's very clear we are in a currency war,
Right.
right?
Oh,
So
across the board.
across the board, everybody, no, like a lot of countries, they don't want to use the United States dollar for trade anymore. We have weaponized the SWIFT system that we talk about almost every week now. So why are countries going to want to do business with the United States when we can just shut them off?
Yeah.
Okay, whether it's warranted or not. Like we saw what happened in Canada. The government froze people's bank accounts for sending the truckers like $25. So now, if we move to a central bank digital currency, and they decide, let's just say things change in our government and we move to like a more Republican based government, right? And they're against all the Democratic people this time. Can they just like freeze your accounts? And do we trust our central bank to be fair, because that's what's best for people, right?
Yeah.
What's best for people is to have free flowing money. Everybody has a bank account, and no one should be cut off from the system, because we all need to eat, right? We all need to pay our bills. And I don't think it's good to have a centralized system have all the control over over money, basically. So definitely something to think about. And and again, like I listened to the Bank of International Settlements Summit as well, and even they were saying, they were like, the SEC really didn't have to do too much in the United States government because blockchain wasn't even scalable, and now it is.
Right.
And
The advancements have been huge.
and the advancements are happening quicker and quicker, so we're seeing these systems now, they are scalable to the masses, right, the mass population. And what's next? Once these systems like Cardano, Polkadot, Avalanche, Ethereum, all these systems are going to connect, and they're all going to be able to talk to each other. The central banking system and the centralized governments aren't going to be able to compete with the new monetary system that's being built. Like Charles Hodgkinson said, we didn't ask for permission. We don't need your approval. Like, you had your time. Like, if we look at the history and how many people have suffered under the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the United States, like, it's always the people that suffer. So
Yeah.
people aren't going to keep going back to their abusive parents, for their dollar. They're going to go someplace else. And most countries were going to the United States dollar. Like people in Mexico, as soon as they get paid, and the same thing with Turkey, they would run to the bank, they convert their money to the
Right.
US dollar. Now the US dollar is getting devalued. So where are they going to go? They're going to go to Bitcoin, they're going to go to Ethereum, and they're going to go to some other, cryptocurrency assets. Like that's exactly what is happening, and that's going to happen. And again, it's like we're in the internet during like 1994, 1995. This isn't going to happen overnight, but it happens very, very slowly and then all at once.
Right. Well, and I think even when you go to the beginning, when the whole, C-19 started, is that's where people were beginning to put and invest their their extra dollars that they were receiving from the government. I think a lot of that liquidity went into the markets, right? Because we saw huge rallies after that, huge rallies where we had a lot of buying power coming into the market. And we'll see that again. As
Yeah,
these things, as the tide turns, we will continue to see that kind of influence into the cryptocurrency markets based on stimulation or whatever is going to be coming in the future. Who knows what that's going to look like?
right. And I know like the first stimulus check that a lot of people received, like the first time by Trump, is if they put that, I think, what was it, like, was it $1,400 people received? I don't remember.
I don't
But if
remember.
you
Yeah.
if you put that whole check that you received into Cardano, you would have been up 46,000%.
Yeah.
So you would have turned that like 1,200 or 1,400 into over $40,000. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's, again, it's like these are new systems that are becoming such a huge part of our world that in, like, let's just say 5, 6, 7 years, we're going to be like, we lived life without the blockchain.
Right. Yeah. It's that pivotal of a moment in time.
Yeah. Yep. And then, another interesting thing too was like, there was somebody at the Bitcoin conference who was from Mexico, and she was saying, there's 67 million people that aren't included in the financial system in Mexico. In 2 months, they're introducing legislation to approve Bitcoin as legal tender.
Oh, wow. And that's okay. That was announced during the Bitcoin conference.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. So, so again, once we have Mexico, we have a little island off of Honduras that just said, "Hey, we just legalized Bitcoin tender." There's a autonomous island off of Portugal that
Hmm.
legalized Bitcoin. And again, once you legalize Bitcoin as legal tender, you no longer pay capital gains tax.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Did I realize that? Hmm.
I didn't
Okay.
either, but that's why I've been following the Bitcoin conference. It is chock full of information. You learn so much because I was wondering, like, okay, well, El Salvador said you don't have to pay taxes, and I was trying to figure it out. But like, what they're going to do is all of these smaller countries that are adopting Bitcoin and cryptocurrency first, like, they're going to be the ones that are really leading what other countries are going to do. Because if Europe wants to go like 100% draconian on their citizens, the people are going to vote with their feet. And this is what they were talking about at the Bitcoin
Yeah.
conference. They will pick up and move. You better believe it. If like you're going to be tracked, monitored, deducted, if you're not going to buy what they want you to buy, then you're going to, or if they want to tax you 40, 50%, you're going to move. Like eventually you're going to move. We're going to have to. Like I was talking to Rowan about it last night. I was like, my family moved here because of Mussolini. I'm from Italy. Like my family, like, we're only like, we're only like second, third generation in some of my family. So it's kind of still new for us. And like if we get a Mussolini type person, would we leave America? Yes, for freedom, we would leave, and I think a lot of people would.
Oh, and I think you're actually kind of seeing that, regardless of whether or not it's really easily to be documented. I mean, I know that there's quite a few people that I'm aware of in my circles that have actually left the country. A few to Ireland, a few that have been able to do that, a couple to Portugal, a number of people to Mexico. So I think you're seeing it, very slowly happening regardless, and I do believe it'll become more mainstream as time goes on,
Yeah.
more options.
And again, I think even with some of like the big, like, some of the bigger countries like the United States and Europe, it's going to take us.
Yeah.
We are the educated ones. We are the people that understand what's happening. So we need to make our voices heard on a daily basis and, make sure that we have sovereign money, that every single transaction isn't going to be monitored, because it's not a good life. And it's not just about us, it's about our children, our brothers and sisters, it's about everybody. So I think that there's definitely going to be a time when we're going to have to make a lot of noise, a lot of noise. And I already see Janet Yellen break, she's already kind of like, well, there are benefits of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Like she's saying this now after Senator Warren wrote her that letter. So Senator Warren, like we've been following her, we know she's in bed with Gary Gensler and the SEC, and they're doing everything they can. And oh my God, so Biden just nominated Nancy Pelosi for a position at the SEC. Like they're getting desperate. Like the lady is like a major insider trading. She has the best trading record of any person alive. You think that she's not getting inside information to make these profitable trades over and over again? Let's put her into the SEC because she knows what's best for the American people. I mean, it's nuts.
So, I mean, there are reasons why I think a majority of the population, I'm not going to say a majority of the population, I'm just going to speak for myself, don't follow these things because the storyline is just so ludicrous.
Yeah, I totally get it. I get it. Like, and I've never really followed anything, but now that I'm in it, and I honestly, like, again, you don't have to follow it because I'm doing it for us,
Oh,
but
I'm
like,
I'm right there. Go ahead. You do
yeah,
it. You come in here every week and tell us what's going on. It's
right,
pretty.
because like people are going to post like protests, we sign petitions, and they'll say, here's the letter, sign it and just send it to your congressman, send it to your senator. And the more emails they get from us, the more they take us seriously, you
Right.
know, like especially even with the Ripple lawsuit, there's 66,000 XRP holders that signed the lawsuit. They know we're watching the SEC very closely. And because people that never followed the government before, like the 66,000 of us, because I'm telling you, no one really, we trusted these people and they broke our trust, and it's just like, and I hear people say over and over again, oh, we need to tax the rich because the rich don't pay enough taxes. But that's not solving the problem. The problem is the government and the central banking systems that have manipulated the money, the printing, right? They print all the money, then they raise the interest rates, things crash, they wipe out more people's money, but the money's not getting wiped out, it's just being transferred back to them. And the higher the inflation is, then Jerome Powell from the Federal Reserve Bank can take cheaper dollars to pay down the balance, and it keeps this Ponzi scheme going, right? Because it's like, it's definitely a Ponzi scheme. Like, I've always been like, for the last 20 something podcasts, trying to always give the benefit of the doubt, but the more I see it unravel and the more I see how untransparent our government is, then how can we trust these people when they're not telling us the truth, or they don't tell us anything.
Yeah, and I think, ultimately for us, we're here because we can see, and that's why we show up to do this. I
Yeah.
would have never thought I would be doing this and many other things that I do today. But regardless, we're doing it so we can be informative, right? So we can see there are so many beautiful things that are happening here, and to work through and navigate through the FUD, through all the FUD. I mean, there's a lot out there, but there
Yeah.
are ways for us to get involved. Never financial advice, but just to be aware that there are opportunities here and that we want to be in the game with everything else. The future is exciting. I know that Mary just put that in the thread as well. And good morning to Jeannie. But yeah, it is exciting.
It's really exciting. And the thing is, too, like when I'm listening to like Janet Yellen and all of these people, and they're saying Bitcoin, there's no use case for Bitcoin except that it's a store of value. Well, maybe in the United States right now today, but in other countries all around the world, Bitcoin is their lifeline.
Yeah.
So that's not being truthful of all the different use cases. And even with like, and this was great too, because like in the Bitcoin conference, they're saying, they're talking about the environmental social governance with BlackRock and how Bitcoin is bad for the environment. And you have these people that have gotten into Bitcoin and are now like gazillionaires. And they're like, we're going to use Bitcoin to save the earth. These people are passionate, and they're full of love, and they're full of desire to make the world a better place. These people are like, we will buy the hydro plants. We will use nuclear. We will use all the green energy. We will buy them and make them operational so we can mine the Bitcoin and use all the energy to like, provide electricity for everyone.
Well, and I hope that that continues to be the case. I mean, let's utilize whatever we can to serve the highest and best, right? And one thing I think that gets really confusing for people is when they hear Bitcoin and they're new to the cryptocurrency landscape is that they feel that Bitcoins are only opportunity, and that's not it. Because
Right.
you know, Bitcoin, I had somebody send me a text just a few minutes ago because they want to get in the market, but they feel like it's only Bitcoin. So just there's more things to look at besides. We're talking a lot about Bitcoin in this particular podcast. Very, very true. But there are so many other ways that and other coins that will be brought into the fold just as powerfully as Bitcoin.
Definitely, definitely. And that, and again, like what Kelly and I just said before, it's like we're at like this 1994, 1995 year of the internet. That's where we are with blockchain. So when we talk about, the internet was created so we could share information all over the world at like, at a fraction of a second. What the blockchain is going to do is we're going to be able to share value through the internet
Yeah.
in a fraction of a second. So like it's not just Bitcoin, but like Bitcoin was the first, and like
Oh,
obviously
absolutely.
Bitcoin also has the conference, so I'm sharing the news. But like Ethereum was the first smart contract like platform, and what that does is like developers can go and they can build like applications and games like on top of these platforms. So they're building like a whole new ecosystem of a way that we can share value and ideas and information, in a decentralized manner. So, and then Ethereum's not only isn't only the it's not the only smart contract platform. Like we've talked about Cardano, Polkadot, Tezos, Avalanche, Solana. There's a lot. Thor is another good one. And I know we kind of touched base on VeChain, but like every single facet of the way that the world does business is going to be disrupted by blockchain, whether you're a lawyer, an accountant, a driver, the way we do marketing, advertising. So it's kind of like, we're never late. We're like right on time. But at the same time, like I still feel like we're early. Like, yeah, we're not buying Bitcoin at $1,000, but think about like, again, like an ETF. So ETF funds are where like a lot of people's pension funds are held. So if we can move those pension funds out of dollars and into like a Bitcoin or a smart contract type of fund, then we can actually save people's like say their savings, right? We all put our money like in these like 401ks and pension funds, and what if they get wiped out? And what if like inflation hits 20, 30, 40%? What's going to happen to our parents that are living off the interest on
Yeah.
like their tiny money market fund? And it's always the elderly and it's the poorest people that get hurt the most. And that's exactly what the government is saying that they're trying to protect. So they do the opposite because I'm seeing it get played out. So it's like, I know like Bitcoin is over $40,000, but if we think about the money that's going to flow into Bitcoin, and once we get regulatory clarification and we have monetary policy, all the institutions are going to adopt Bitcoin first. That's my personal opinion. This isn't financial advice. I'm just looking at what's been going on in the past and kind of like putting the pieces together for the future. So I think companies like Fidelity, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, KPMG, we're seeing it. They want more Bitcoin. They want more Ethereum, and we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars that come into the market. And once trillions and trillions of dollars are in Bitcoin, $40,000 is going to look real cheap.
Oh, yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah. So, and there's so many different facets of how this is all going to work. And we cover as many coins as we can. Like, I mean, Rowan's told me last night she wants to do an intervention because I'm out of control just trying to research and research and research because one, I'm worried. Like, not, I'm concerned
Well, you're
because
researching to empower. You're researching so you said these are the best projects or whatever it may be. So it's brilliant, but I understand the intervention needs too. I think you and I both could probably
okay.
use one of those. But yeah. But no, continue, please.
So, and again, this is just something to think about. And Kelly and I, we are, the farthest thing from like financial advisors, but maybe it's like we shouldn't look at it like I don't have enough money to buy Bitcoin, but well, heck, I should probably own a little bit of it. Maybe I should own just maybe like 2% of our overall like diversification of our portfolio, maybe 4%, maybe 2% in Bitcoin, 2% in Ethereum. And we know that the ISO 222 tokens, they're going live. They're going live this year. So we're talking the clearinghouse, the SWIFT system. You hear Janet Yellen saying the narrative is changing, and they're talking about how blockchain technology can solve and improve cross border transactions. So, who's involved with cross border transactions? All the ISO 222 tokens, such as XRP, XLM, Algorand, IOTA, XDC. So, we're not telling you to buy these, but write them down and do some research and look at who their partners are. Like, why would Rosie Rios, the 43rd treasurer of the United States government, go and work for a company like Ripple if XRP isn't going to be used? It's speculation, but it's kind of like, it's a good guess. Like I would put some money on that, and I did, and that's where I'm comfortable. That's what I did. But I also
Right.
own Ethereum, and I own Algorand, and I own Bitcoin. I own a whole bunch of other things as well because we're diversifying.
Right. And I know because I'm getting a couple of texts from some people and it's not in the thread here. I think one of the things for those that are like, well, what is Algorand? What is ISO 222? All these things, there is a lot and there's so much to try to understand. So you're just going to take it in bits and pieces, however it comes to you. But if you want to begin a kind of a deep dive, you can go to the very beginning of when we started this podcast and listen in sequence, and you'll begin to get the picture. We're working on a links and resources page on our website that will help you kind of tie into these things, but do some deep dives because the ISO 222, which is going to come into play in September, October timeframe, is when it's going to be really rolled out. If I remember correctly, those are all big projects. That's a huge project right there in and of itself. Even if you just wanted to look only at that portfolio of cryptocurrencies or of coins that are out there, those would be winners in my book as far as just being able to be in the game, if you will, so to speak.
No, absolutely. And it could be like, we don't need all these coins to go to the moon, right? So like, but if we diversify enough with like these smart contract platforms and the ISO 222 coins, like have a little bit of Bitcoin, have some Ethereum, and again, we're not financial advisors, but
No.
looking where these companies started and how they've developed and where they're going, like we're getting closer and closer to having these smart contracts connect and interoperate. And once they can talk to each other, it's like imagine having, like, let's say I have Verizon and Kelly has AT&T. We can't talk because our phones and the lines don't connect. That's where the banking system is right now, and that's where blockchain is. But we worked on the problem. Now it's scalable, right? So we could do hundreds of thousands, and it's going to be trillions of transactions per second for some of these systems. And once we can send the value through all the different systems, it's going to be amazing. And then I believe, and I'm speculating, that we're going to start to see the government and the central banking systems, the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, we're going to start to see these people start to lose power, and their systems are going to start to dismantle, because what blockchain and what Bitcoin and some of these cryptocurrencies have done, like Hex and Pulse Chain, is they're creating competitiveness,
Right.
and people are going to go where they're treated best. Now, if some people aren't able to like participate in society for whatever reason, well, you'll have a central bank digital currency. But other people who can see the bigger picture are like, wow, like I can participate in locking up my hex for a year and I'm getting 38% APY. I'm going to do that to save for my children's education instead of keeping my money in a money market account
Right.
that's not paying me, and the dollar's getting devalued year over year. So
That's exactly
just
it.
yeah. And it was really cool too because there was a bunch of billionaires on the stage at the Bitcoin conference, and they were talking about like mitigating risk. And as information comes in and as things change, we can't be like so like tribal when it comes to like owning some of these coins, right? Because we do know some of these coins might go out of business. Even though they started a really good project like Sushi. Sushi is a decentralized platform. Grayscale just took them off as one of their holdings. So again, it's like, if we hold, and I do hold a little bit of Sushi, and now I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should allocate that into something else because I want to mitigate my risk, because not all these projects are going to make it.
No, there's over 17,000
Right.
cryptocurrency projects out there, and not all of them are necessarily trustworthy. So it is important to do your homework. And there are some scams out there. And we're big proponents of safety first and where we're getting our information. But yeah, there will be. I mean, it's just like I mean, I know AOL is still out there, but when you think about, you've got mail and all these other things, as time goes on, the other systems come in and take over the landscape. And there will be the really big winners, and there will be those that continue to flourish and those that will continue to drop off. So it's all good. It's all
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
process.
And again, like what Kelly said, like that's exactly what happened. Like if we look back at like year 2K, but we still have Microsoft, we have Apple, we have Dell. There's all different types of computers and hardware and software systems. And this is the same thing, you know? And our entire way that we do business is changing. So, everything is getting tokenized and fractionalized, which will help everyone own like a piece of Bitcoin or a piece of Tesla, a piece of Apple. Like, you don't have to have one full Bitcoin or one full share of Tesla, because it's all going to be tokenized, broken down into smaller pieces,
Right.
which is so cool. It's the same thing with fine art. Like as inflation goes up, the price and value of hard assets like fine art, they go up in price. So I know we've talked about masterworks.io. So like we don't have to have $5 million to buy a Picasso. We could throw 500 bucks at it, and then in a year we have like a 75-80% return on our money. Like, so it's kind of like just opening up our minds and looking at different ways that we can create. Really, we're trying to open up our minds to make passive income, right, through the research that we do. And the more passive income we create, then the more sustainable that we are.
Right. Absolutely. The more we flourish too. And that's what we want to do.
Yep.
There's some really interesting projects out there. I mean, like buying NFTs to become part of the no limit llamas, which I know we've talked about, which is kind of holding a stake in a casino, an online casino. So if you're a card player, anyway, there's some really creative things and fun things. It doesn't have to be all this very structured. There's some ways. If you have a passion, there's probably a cryptocurrency project out there for you. If you're a gamer, there's tons of them. So there's lots of entry points.
No, definitely. Like content creators with like library, and like musicians with Audius, and like artists with something like a masterworks.io, where it's not cryptocurrency, but you're buying an NFT of that Picasso,
Yep.
right? So, just to kind of like broaden our mind and diversify, because our dollar's been so stable for so long. But because we're alive, we can see that things are changing, right? We don't need to be an economist to understand that every time we go to the store we need more money.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how about let's jump in. I know we're kind of talking a lot today, but so the European digital ID, you want to just touch base on that a little bit?
That kind of, I mean, it surprised me how quickly that came into, all of a sudden it was there.
Yeah. So these countries have been working on a digital ID, and you could go to Global ID 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what a digital ID is going to do is that your banking, your medical records, your driver's license, anything is going to be held on like this digital ID that is given out by the government, basically. So again, it's if you live in Europe and you think your government is great, then totally go for it. But I think most people are questioning the motives, right? Because if all of your information, if all your money, your medical records, your driver's license, you're paying for bills, and they're all right there, like all the government has to do is say, "Well, Andrea, you mentioned Janet Yellen on your podcast. Delete." And that's it. At a touch of a button, you're locked out of your system. All of it. You don't have access to your driver's license. You don't have access to your money. You don't have access to pay for your bills. Do we want these central banks to have so much control? Absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. So, and again, like, I think like we hear so much fear, uncertainty, and doubt about Bitcoin because Bitcoin was the first mover and because it's so big and because more countries are using it for day-to-day transactions, that these central agencies are feeling threatened.
Right, sure, because this really came like a speeding bullet out of
Mhm.
nowhere all of a sudden. I'm sure they've been working on it in the back end, but yeah, it has a lot to do with all the synergy happening.
Yeah,
There's no,
and a global ID, just look it up. ID 2020.
yeah,
It's been around for years and years, which, again, it's like, was it a coincidence that all these things happened to propel us into the fourth industrial, you know, data revolution that we're in? Or is this a moment of time for like an awakening for the people to be like, whoa, I see, like I see
right.
what's going on, and I'm going to take my money, and instead of doing this, I'm going to do this, right? Because there's going to be other ways that we can protect our money online without having a digital ID. And with all of the talk that the government is telling us about cyber attacks and how unsafe everything is online, do we really want a digital ID right now? No way. Why would Europeans go and get a digital ID when Russia is threatening to like take down our systems?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just stuff to think about.
And I think it's really important to consider. I mean, of course, we're talking here about the whole landscape, but how are we keeping our digital assets, not even only our digital assets safe? And I know you and I just had a class about that recently, but it's how are we keeping what we can keep safe of our own? What are the steps that we're going to take personally to protect our privacy online? That's a big thing for me. I mean, I know we talk about it a lot, but I'm really mindful of where I'm going to get my research anymore and how am I going about it and what am I using to kind of shield. At the end of the day, they have everything and they're always going to have everything at this point. They have access to it, but I still can be mindful of how I approach things.
Definitely. And again, like we can do peer-to-peer transactions like anonymously, even though it's still like if we send each other Bitcoin, it's it's anonymous, but it's not private, right? It's just
Right.
like it's on the blockchain, but the government doesn't need to know that like we went to the store and bought like a candy bar. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I get it. Like if we make a big purchase, it's what it is now. If we spend over, I think, $10,000, it goes to the IRS. Like it's always been that way. But I
Yeah.
think they're using the narrative of what's going on in the world to take more of our rights away, to monitor more of our transactions, because the ultimate goal is a social credit score, which is what Europe is. This whole thing with Europe is moving towards a social credit score based on, you know, like carbon emissions. So again, it's like, who created the carbon? Like the problems, like every single problem that I look at always goes back to the government and the central bank. So we have to just start questioning and being like, well, how can we have more private and anonymous money, without being monitored? Because what happens when, they're like, well, Andrea, you have a 7-seater, you don't need that. Like you can't drive your car anymore. Like even though there's like two places to plug in that are probably 20 minutes away to, put the electricity in our car, you know? So it's just it's definitely like that is the end game. I don't see it happening. Like the more I think about things, Kelly, and I don't know, I'm sure you feel the same way. You can't control an entire population. Like
Oh
digital
no.
ID, whatever you want to do. Like I think now's the time, like listening to people from like North Korea, like they have zero freedom. They live in the dark. A lot of these people don't even have electricity. So, like, how can we utilize Bitcoin to get the people money so they can start creating like a new society? Right, because that's where I see this going. So as the old system is failing, the new system is getting built, and it's being built on the blockchain, and it will be decentralized. All we need is a payment app, and then the government's not going to, what are they going to do, you know? So I'm thinking like we'll just do a flat rate tax. I know Janet Yellen wants us all to become like global citizens with a digital ID, and you could try that. But and maybe some people will live in a centralized world. We're decentralized girls. We'll live in the
Right.
decentralized
Right.
world.
I
And
think there's going to be a despair. I think there's going to
yeah,
be these two. There is. I mean, because not everybody's going to get on the same boat,
yeah,
and they're not going to allow and there's going to be people that are willing to step out of that line to do that, which we are. And it's no right or wrong. You're going to do what feels right for you and what's best for you. And that's perfect. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing that this is the route we're taking, or at least the information we want to share for you to peel back the layers of the onion.
yeah. Because I mean, and this is what's going on. I mean, I'm pulling stuff from Janet Yellen. I mean, I'm just listening to them talk, and I take notes, and I'm bringing it to you guys. Like, so again, like you don't have to trust anything that we say, but like do your own research and you'll find like everything that we say is true. And if it's not, let us know. Like if
Right.
we're humans,
Absolutely.
we make mistakes,
And not
but
everybody's going to be in agreement, and that's okay too.
yeah,
That's
totally.
perfectly cool.
Totally. And at the end of the day, we don't know how this is going to end because we're in a currency war. China wants power, Russia wants power, the United States doesn't want to give up power, Bitcoin's rising to power. There's all these things that are going on. Like, is XRP going to be the global bridge asset of the world? Like, we don't know. But through our research, we can make hypothetical guesses, right?
Yeah. Hypothetical guesses. Absolutely.
Do we have any more questions? I'm so glad everyone's here. I don't see. I can only see Kelly.
So if you go to the very top on your screen and look under comments, sorry, my dog is
Oh,
dreaming. If you can hear that, you can see the comments. One thing I wanted to share, it's going to be a hard right, and I know that we're at the end of our time, but because I did put it in the title of our podcast, the yellow 42 plus red number 5 equals something something plus a carrot. We end up with a carrot. I just wanted to share, it was just one of those things because I have a very interesting mind. We all do. And I'm not a proponent of eating created foods like that. It's like there's this drive to create these synthetic foods based on using snails or what, I don't know what they're doing to create the substance, but
yeah.
a yellow 42 plus a red 45, and I'm making up these numbers plus something makes us a carrot. And I'm really mindful of what I'm putting in my body, and that isn't one of the things I want to put in my body.
You
Is
don't
these
you don't want a lab raised carrot?
I don't want a lab raised carrot, and I don't want lab raised meat, and I don't want lab raised lettuce or any of that. And it's interesting how all of a sudden I've been really super aware of what's kind of going on out there. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just want to acknowledge that little piece that I put in our title. That's where that stems from. We're not going to go down that path. I mean, Andrew and I could choose many paths to go down, but I just wanted to reference that. I don't want to eat that kind of stuff. I don't want that to even be in my sphere anywhere. So I
Yeah.
would encourage everybody to be mindful of what they're consuming and what you see out there in the
Well,
markets.
and again, I think that's such a good point, Kelly, because the thing is, so like I have a degree in nutrition, I had a private practice. I spoke a lot about the FDA. So I just want everyone to sit with this. The FDA stands for the Food and Drug Administration. You eat this food, you eat this drug, or you take this drug, and the government manages you, and the pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money by giving you medication that you need to take over and over. And we started genetically modifying our food, and I
long
did
time
some
ago.
postgraduate work on this, and my professor had me rewrite my paper. I wrote it about informed consent and how we were the largest feeding experiment in the history of the world. And he made
Oh,
me
wow.
rewrite it. And he said, "You're probably right, but I don't know what you're talking about." And this was years ago. This was like I was like a crazy vegan. Like, oh, I was freaked out because I'm like, the government's poisoning us. So with
Interesting.
the food that we eat, and Bill Gates is buying up all the farmland. So we
I know.
want to do research on this. And again, like, know your local farmers, know where your food is going, like coming from. When you go to a regular grocery store, if you eat meat and dairy and things like that, ask them, where does your meat come from? Because we don't know. They don't have to label it. They got rid of the food labeling law years ago, right? So this is like, we could do a whole podcast just on this.
We could, and I think we will end up because I've been doing a deep dive. I'm not going to get into it, but I think we could easily do a deep dive into that. And I think that's something that we're going to have to do
Yeah.
because
If you
I'm
guys
learning
want
a
us
lot.
to, if you want us to incorporate like nutrition and like mindfulness, like we can definitely do that as well.
Yeah.
And I know Kim said, "Do you think a payment app is coming soon?" It better, Kim, because or we're going to have to make deals with like the local people, right, where we live for peer-to-peer transactions, right? We can totally send money all day long, but I've listened to Christine Lagarde, that lady. She is like the president of the European Central Bank. She used to be the managing director, and she was like proud of herself to be like, you can play around in your decentralized exchanges, but we get the choke points. We got the choke point. We're gonna choke you, right? I mean, that's what those were her words. And I'm like, this lady is a freaking lunatic. She's a lunatic. Like, and again, the more desperate they get with like the draconian measures, we know that these systems are failing. Like, no one's going to use dollars when we're at 30, 40, 50% inflation. We're all going to be using like XLM and XRP and all Bitcoin. We're going to use anything that we can, right?
Right. No, absolutely.
Anything of value, we're going to use over something that's on its way out, you know, which is cool. So I know Richard Hart's working on a payment app. Is that
Richard Hart, yep, yep, that's exactly. So do some deep dives on the pulse system. Richard Hart, I mean, I think what he's creating and what his desire to do, and I'm like we said the last podcast, I'm still in the process of doing deep dives into it, is really creating a model for the future, including that app, that type of an application. So it's a great project to keep your eye on, and it's not launched yet. The entire he has launched Hex, but the Pulse system has not been completely launched yet. They're still in the late process of their test net. But it should be, I think they're expecting by the end of the month, first part of May, if the latest. I mean, who knows? Yeah, it's worth looking at
yeah?
for sure.
And I know there's a lot of payment apps. Like I downloaded Cody Pay on my phone, but unfortunately, I don't have access to it because I live in the United States. So I don't know if they do like it's called KYC, like know your customer. So I don't know if they're going to have us do that, but Cody is connected to Cardano, and Cardano will also have payment apps. But again, these are huge multi-billion dollar companies, and if the government is still in charge, they're going to really push these companies to comply. And the only person I know for sure that won't comply is Richard Hart, right? So
No,
we
no, no, no,
can't have him.
no.
Like
Yeah.
I think like what would Charles Hodgkinson do? Like what would, like, even like when I listen to like the white pages at Ripple, like they're basically saying, unless the central banks are willing to innovate and make it like more friendly for the average user, like people aren't going to do this. And Ripple is telling you this in the central bank digital currency. Like the Bank of International Settlements, like they were talking about how people wouldn't choose this. And it was the Bank of International Settlements Summit. And it was kind of funny to see, like, here are all of these issues. So the more pressure we put on these companies, like if these people stay in power, which they have over thousands of years, maybe they will shift so we do keep our privacy. Like I'm seeing Janet Yellen kind of take a step back now. So again, it might be where we do have privacy and we can move on with our lives, right?
That's what we're vying for. Kim, I'm looking at your question real quick. Kim says that the podcast link on the website only goes to 16. I'm looking that looks to be the case. I'll take a peek at it. But if you go to Podbean, you'll be able to see all of the podcasts. We're also on Google and Spotify, so they'll all be listed there. And we don't have all of our podcasts listed on YouTube. We started just doing the audio before we got everything tied in. So that'll be a work in progress. But Podbean holds everything, just as an FYI.
Yeah, and it's really cool. So like Kelli and I like hit a milestone with our podcast that we can actually start to like monetize it.
I
We're
know.
we're not going to do that because they're going to show you guys commercials and we don't want that. Um, so I think like Kelly's going to put like a little like donation. Like we don't have enough subscribers to like buy us a cup of coffee or something, but we were able to, when I say we, I mean Kelli was able to put together a link. What is that, like Coin Tree Me or something? If you guys
Yeah, it's
tip us a
coin.
buck or two, you could send crypto to like this thing.
Yeah, and we'll get a donation button and things like that even on our website. So we've been a work in progress, no doubt. But yeah, we're excited. So we're actually we talked about this last night. I know we're well over our hour, but trying to find some sponsors. And I think we have a couple people in line to do that, because we want to support you equally as you support
Yeah.
us. And we have some folks that are consistent and showing up and supporting everything, and we want to make sure that we reciprocate everything because it is a team effort.
Yeah, it's a team effort. I mean, this is kind of what crypto is all about, is supporting each other in the community that are bringing value, and that's what this whole thing is about. Like we all take care of each other in all different ways.
Yeah, so anybody listening who wants to become one of our sponsors or what have you, or do some type of a promo for yourself, just be in contact with us. You can reach us at twowomenandcrypto@gmail, and it's twowomenandcrypto.com for our classes. And by the way, just real quick, tomorrow we are hosting a class on how to learn how to stake your Cardano, your ADA on the Yori wallet. I don't know if we mentioned this at the very beginning because we both came in pretty hot this morning, just coming off of what life was first thing in the morning. But yeah, hope everybody is enjoying our content, and thank you for showing up with us. And first, we do a live the first Friday of every month, and whether or not we do more of the lives, we'll just see as time goes by.
Yeah, just let us know. And if there's anything you want us to cover, let us know. I had planned on doing VeChain, but there's, with the European digital ID and the Bitcoin conference, like we only have an hour. So we'll pick up VeChain next week, because not financial advice, but I believe that it's going to be one of the major players with the new global supply chain. So
Okay.
yeah, it's fantastic. Running on Thor.
Running on Thor, I know, right? Yep.
Yeah.
We can get into a whole nother conversation on that too. All right. So many topics coming, I'm sure. All right, everybody. Until next week.
Huddle on.
Huddle on.
Thanks for being here.